Okay, hello there. Let me see. Okay. All right, so please let me know, Mike, if the audio is okay. But it should be the same settings as before. All right, so hello guys. I'm back, and yeah, we are going to continue looking at the Qatari Desert, not desert, desert material. Hopefully, my English is going to come back to me. I feel a bit sick, today, and my brain seems to be off. So yeah, hopefully it's going to go fine. And also, what I actually want to do today is not only talk about like what I actually did with the material, but also like what I should have done. And that's actually going to be the focus mostly because I've gone through the material, and I think it's actually pretty bad in terms of how you, not necessarily the aesthetics. That could be much better, obviously, but it was more of an experiment anyway. But like in terms of how I structured the graph, what I should have been thinking about, when I was working on it, and what I like really like. What is the difference between like a good approach to something like this and what I actually did? I think there is a huge gap there. Anyway, so it's going to be more of a like again, do as I say, not as I did, and in fact, what I definitely want to recommend to you is a YouTube channel by uh, this YouTube channel. It's Johnny Nodes with an underscore, and I think, to my mind, this is like the best substance designer slash InstaMAT Element Graph uh, like learning source out there right now. Like no one else is really making videos like these. He obviously works in Substance Designer, so you would have to like adjust a little bit, and not everything is the same. But for the most part, the way he talks about approaching the materials is actually really helpful. And I would definitely recommend a lot of his like videos about how to use specific nodes, and of course how to like approach certain materials. He also works a lot with curves, which we don't have in InstaMAT yet. But especially videos like these 3 steps to improve, uh, you know, it's structured like. At first, I was really put off because it was structured like these, very stupid videos when they like say, this is a beginner and this is what a pro would do. But he's much smarter than that, and he shows you how to like improve your graphs gradually, and like what mistakes to avoid. And like at first I was like, okay, I'm doing all of that. It's perfectly fine. I'm good enough, right? No, no bullshit. Actually, I made a lot of mistakes, like the ones he describes in the video in this graph. And so I definitely want to thank this Johnny person, and I would like to take a few lessons, from him, or like follow his suggestions and like what not to do, and maybe point it out in my graph as well as a sort of a learning experience. Yeah. So I never claimed to be any good. Like I started a year ago, only in InstaMAT. I don't have like infinite time to practice every day or anything like that. So it's I'm a noob. Okay, I admit, but yeah, I actually would like to focus on getting better instead of just like showing you the graph and moving on, and like asking you to like and subscribe or whatever. So that's not what we are doing. We are doing a critical review of my graph, if you will. So let's get back to it. I'll just a refresher for people who weren't maybe looking last time or didn't want to watch the first video. This is our reference, mostly these 2 images. We are focusing on the rocks, which we went through the generation of the height map in the first stream, and yeah, mostly that. And we talked about like certain approaches to how you could structure your graph in terms of subgraphs and all that. I would like to add a few points to that today, and I will, hopefully. If not, remind me. But yeah, that's the reference. That's what we are trying to create. I also spoke about Jonathan Benanus, I don't have his images here, but he made a material like this, and he also wrote a tutorial on Adobe Learn, so you can use that as well as I did, or as just like I did. All right, so let's go back to the graph. Just a second. Let's open the package, Qatari Desert Rocks. Just a quick reminder, I guess. So first we generated we created a rock generator, a height map rock generator, and this was like the basic primitive we used to sort of sculpt our rocks in the main graph, which we are going to open now. Package, whoops. Qatari Desert, that's it. So I think I'm going to be showing you this in 2K just for the speed, and at the end I'm going to show you like a few of the details that come out when you like have it in 4K. It's not that intense in this case. That like the difference is not that strong, so we don't have to worry. So just to recap, we have these like directional rocks generators. We sort of blend them together using different gradients and different blending modes, and we sort of start sculpting them, right? This is how we sculpt them. We use curves to sort of control the height a little bit. Then we create a few anisotropic noises. Actually, let me put those in a... nope, that's not the one I wanted, this one. Yeah, a few anisotropic noises. We do some warping, blending, and stuff like that. I actually changed this a little bit. I found that this was the one that created the most like unnatural feel of the rocks. So I sort of toned it down. So changed it. There were like really like these weird long striations that I removed. So hopefully that's a bit better. I still don't like this little piece here, but I think that's because the way I'm like putting the rocks together. I could of course change it. It's procedural, so no problem. So yeah, I adjusted the rocks a little bit, so they are a bit. You can see the noises a bit more as well, but at the same time, I feel like this feels slightly more natural for like what I was going for. I don't know. All right, so we sort of kept sculpting these big rocks, and yeah, we keep sculpting. Then I added a few of these cracks, nothing too special, and then we started detailing just a few holes and dents and all that. Like nothing too special there, but we talked about this last time. So. So we are going to focus more on the rest of the material, which is basically the sand and a few of these pebbles and like small stones. And while the sand is actually, I think, pretty good, the dunes and all that, the pebbles and the stones are just horrible. And it's like, I should have done this in a completely different way. So let's not do that next time, yeah? So that's step number one. So, okay, I'm just going to open OBS so that I can see. All right. Yes. All right. So, as always, Mike or someone else, if you have any questions, let me know, of course, in the chat, or if you are watching this in the future by some random chance of fate, I don't know, then please let me know in the comments. Of course, I can answer, or at least I can find out what went wrong. All right. So. Now, first of all, I should talk about how all of this comes together, right? Well, I'm using a height blend or blend height node. So what this does, it takes like two height maps, black and white maps, and it sort of puts one on top of each, on top of the other in this case, right? Like we have this blend mode on top. So what I'm actually doing is I'm taking the sand here and I'm putting it on top of my rocks material, but because the rocks are actually like higher, like the whiter, right, into a height map, they will be above. And what this creates is sort of a natural blend in terms of how high the material, the base sand should cover the rocks. And so sometimes, like for example, if I had a lot of holes here, it might also get in there, even though we don't want that, right? But in this case, I was aware of this coming in, and I didn't want to have any like. Basically, I kept the the height of the sand and the height of the rocks like relatively to the, like middle gray, if that makes sense. Like the middle gray would be like the blending area, and I just wanted that to be sort of the reference point. In any case, one of the most useful nodes to control this is this histogram shift. Well, what does histogram shift do? Well, it's basically like the master control on your levels. Like it shifts the whole thing to the left or to the right, more to the whites or to the blacks, obviously. And so in this case, I am taking the sand and I'm pushing it down a little bit. Yeah, like if I didn't do that, they would just cover the rocks entirely. So of course we don't want that. So I kept pushing it down. And this is a control that you can expose later, and you can you know, adjust how much sand coverage you want, or maybe like we just at some point it starts freaking out because of this height blend. But you know, you can all, like expose a lot of the rocks. I think this was pretty good value. You can play with it later. Of course, it depends on the seed as well. Like the main shapes of the rocks are set in stone, so to speak, because we are you know we have manually placed them, or I have manually placed them. But the rest of it is procedural, so you can adjust that according to the version you get from this overall seed, for example. All right, so that's the height blend. As you can see, I'm also like, okay, one advantage of the height blend, as you probably know, is that not only you get like the final combined height map, but you also get a mask of like the difference between the two height maps. Does that make sense? I guess so, right? Like right now, I'm getting the sort of the whites are only where the top part came in. So only where the sand is visible, right? And the blacks, they are isolating the rocks. So that's actually really useful later on for texturing, right? You could also like keeps like modeling your material. You could be dropping more rocks and stuff like that. And in that case, maybe you would like to only allow, for example, pebbles to be spawned, like around the rocks, not on the rocks, right? Or maybe you would like some, I don't know, some moss, right, to be on the rocks. In which case you could just invert this mask and use it as a mask for your moss. Well, as you can see, I actually did not think about that clearly at the time, and I created my pebbles like in the dunes map, or like I blended it over the dunes map, and it's blending with the like with the rest of the sand material or sand aspect of the material, and that's not the best approach, right? So what I'm doing, I'm trying to like isolate my little rocks, and it's not blending correctly sometimes because, you know, like I get rocks that are not visible, but I'm still getting the color there here and there. I don't know how much it you know, is visible on the stream, but sometimes you get these like really white specks, and those are actually rocks that didn't make it through the sand, but because of the way I am creating the mask, which we'll get to later hopefully, it's it's bad, it's wrong. So don't do that. Try to think ahead again how you're going to blend the materials. I guess I should have sort of stayed within the logic of sort of layering this, like the rocks first and then layer everything on top of them, even though the sand is like lower than than the rocks. You're still blending it over it, right? And I should have stayed within that logic. It was a bit stupid. So that's mistake number one anyway, yeah? Also, we have this intersection mask, which you can adjust in the node, and essentially what it gives is contours of like sort of an edge detect, if you will, of the mask of where the two materials or the height maps sort of intersect. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if I can explain it any better. It's actually pretty self-explanatory. Which is a good mask if you want to create like some transitions. I'm just like, I wasn't happy with the way this sort of the sand was overlaid on top of the rocks. So I took the mask, and I'm using that for a couple of things down the line. Mostly color, some roughness adjustments. It's just, you know, additional tool to have. again, you could make a lot with that, right? Like you could even create a couple of these. Let's say you give it a lot more tolerance. Yeah, it gives you this, and then you use something like histogram. What's it called? Histogram range. Or what is it called in histogram edit or select? Actually, select, right? Sorry, my brain is really not working well today. And you could create a couple of masks, like staggered masks, and again use that for albedo, for example. Yeah. All right. So that's how these materials came together. Like I tried to approach this material in a way that would be like modular, if that makes sense. I would get rocks and create a generator for them. I would get the twigs and I would create a generator, a separate generator for them. I would create then I would create like a large rocks and the sand, and I would combine them as two different sort of aspects of the graph with a lot of control. This is like you would get more control than say material layering approach, where you would just get these like ready-made materials and then slap them on top of each other. There wouldn't be enough blending in between them, right? But here I can control the transitional colors and all that, or the transition colors, stuff like that. So that's actually a good approach. I actually failed to stick to it. So let's go to the very beginning of our sand height map, which is here somewhere. Yes. So dunes. Dunes, I think there are a couple of ways one could go about them. Of course, there are noises. Actually, I don't remember if we have Gabor noise. No, we don't have Gabor noise in InstaMAT, but that's one that really looks like dunes, right? You can use like some sort of Voronoi pattern, stretch it, right? I don't know, Voronoi cells maybe. Actually, maybe cells would be better for that. Yeah, something like this. That already gives you like a pretty good base, because if I were to, oops, yeah, for example, like this, you're starting to get something, but I wanted to be able to art direct it a little more, and so I actually followed what Jonathan Benanu suggested in his tutorial, in his written tutorial on Adobe Substance. Basically, you start with a gradient. Yeah. One lovely thing about gradient is that you can control it really well with curves, which will give you a better shape of the dunes. So in this case, right, like this is 0, and I'm creating a bit of a like a peak there, right? Like instead of going like this, which would be very sharp, I'm sort of dulling the edge a little bit. I noticed that in my reference, and I thought that was like a better approach to it. And also this will give you a bit more of a profile on the dune, so that it catches light better. I don't know how much this can be like, you know, you will notice it when you start playing with this, that you're getting really weird shapes that are like unrealistic. And yeah, that's one way to sort of direct it, is that you use curves. Then you can use, for example, this tile node. You could use scatter nodes, you could use tile unstructured nodes, stuff like that. No problem, right? And then I use this skew node. Well, what does the skew node do? It's very easy. Let me just you set an angle at which to skew it. So if I start rotating it, you will see what it does, right? And just by how much this gets skewed. So I think what it does, it sort of takes these 2 points at the top of the texture, like the 0 and 1, and just shifts it to in one direction or the other based on this angle, right? So the rule of thumb here is that it breaks tiling, right? So if you do this at 45 degrees, there should be no problem. Let me see if I can do this and show you. Here, right? Like, yeah. So even at 45 degrees, it breaks the tiling. So it's not the best, but we are going to be using make seamless down the line, and for something like this, it's no problem, because the dunes are like fairly irregular themselves, and we are going to be blending these two directions together and applying a lot of noise and quite a bit of warping and stuff like that. So it's not a big deal, right? But you have to be aware of this. This is a like tiling breaking node. All right, so we do that twice, right? Like once in one direction and in the other. And then we are also making a lot of these noises that will come in later to sort of introduce a lot of like smaller detail and create and like warp the whole thing. But for the main part, what's happening here is that I'm just taking these three textures, this one, which is like semi-large dunes, right? I think I used this electric rich noise because again there was this like wavy pattern that I liked. And yeah, and I want to process all of these in the same way. So I'm again, like I've done a couple of times before, I channel compose them, and then use directional warp with some, I think, Perlin noise. And then again, this time with another electric rich noise. This one is not too, like it's really squashed, right? So just to give it a bit more variety, like what it does, you can probably see it, right? Like it creates these little I don't know, well, warps. And yeah, and then we are starting to blend it together. So we have this red channel, which is like our warp texture in one direction, this green channel, which is the other direction, also warped, and we also have these little intense waves, dunes, also warped, right? And so we do some creative blending. The opacity mask in this case is just like a really large, really contrasty Perlin noise, if I'm not mistaken, right? Then I also warped it again. This doesn't do much. It's just a little bit. If I show you the input, you can see that these are like much smoother, and it was creating almost like little hills, which I didn't want. So I used this mosaic warp. I was just trying different warps and see what comes out. You know, you could do this with like regular stuff, like slow blur, for example. Yeah, and no problem there. All right, we are also blending it together again, so this creates a bit of a ridge there. Leveling it out so that it's not so crazy, because as you can see, this is just black and white, and it would be too high for sand. Then we are introducing a little bit more of a like slow blur again. I think it's set to minimum, not that intense, and what it does is that it just like breaks up this straight line here. It's not that intense, yeah. Like but you can see it adds a bit of difference there. Okay, then I'm blurring it again because I wasn't happy with the shape. If I turn it off, I don't know. You can see that it starts really like bulging up, and it's creating like a really strong effect on the curvature, and it's weird. That's not what the reference looked like at all. So I'm actually blurring it by quite a lot, almost 20%. So maybe we don't have to go as high, but this is also heavily resolution dependent, so be careful there. All right, so this is it. Okay, then I'm blending in what used to be the blue channel here, right? I'm blending it in, just adding it. I thought that in the reference I saw that there sometimes were like smaller dunes inside of the big, like on top of the larger dunes. Well, it's wind, right? So it creates sort of a fractal effect depending on the frequencies and angles that it hits the sand, under which it hits the sand. So yeah, I'm adding a few of these. Then again, then I'm adding these like small crack lines. It's one of the noises we created here. Its cracks are organic, just played with it a little bit, then iterated to create even more variation there. And I'm also skewing it. I'm doing the same thing, right? Like I want to maintain the directions for these noises as well, right? Again, I guess I could have created some channel packing. I was just too lazy for that. But yeah, skew in one direction, skew in another direction, again, skew one way, skew another way. This isn't that important because this is so small that people wouldn't really notice that there is a change in the direction, but let's trying to be consistent. The same for this. This will come in just a second. All right, so I'm adding these smaller cracks, I guess, smaller dunes. It doesn't show that much in the height map But if I find like some angle where I don't know if it shows on the stream, it could be more, it could be stronger. There are like little differences here and there. Let me maybe crank it up. Yeah, now you can see that they are there. They are there. And I'm subtracting them for a change, right? Like you don't want to be just adding, you also want to be like subtracting, so that you get like details that go up and details that go down. In fact, you can do both, right? Like I could have added them. It would have been almost unnoticeable, I guess. Either way. All right. So at 4K, these come out quite a bit. At 2K, they kind of get swallowed up by by the lower resolution. I would have to play with the scales to get it back. All right, undulation. It's another noise, another cell noise. This time a bit sharper, and I'm just screening that over it, basically adding it. It's a version of maximum, if you will, and it's creating again like a here and there. It creates like a detail. I don't know if we can see it in the map. Yeah, here, like again, small details. I could be adding more, I suppose. Yeah, okay. Here, these details. It's not. It's just subtle. Maybe a bit more could be good. Yeah. Again, this is something that comes out in the 4K map a lot better. Okay. And then I'm taking a pretty crazy noise from before. I took this bass and this grain noise, slow blurred it a little bit to inflate it so that it's not just like perfect dots or almost perfect dots, but it's like a little bit of I don't know, specks of grain. Increase in contrast. Now you can really see it, right? Like if you slow blur the noise with itself and set it to maximum, it will inflate the shapes, inflate the whites. There will be more white in general. So and it's the general white shape will be larger, right? So that's how I got it. Then you clamp it to create almost like dots noise. Now what's it called? Spots, right? Spots noise, and blending it over some directional noise, and all of that gets crazy mosaic warped. Well, mosaic warp is a node that Discord suggested, and what it does, it creates little lines that are going down the slopes. Again, a detail that comes out mostly at 4K, but it creates a bit of directionality to the dunes. Yeah, I don't think I can show this to you on stream on the material itself, but you can see what it does, right? Like I then high pass it to get rid of the super blacks and clamp it, right? So I really just get these lines with a bit of blur. It's still like very noisy. You will get like dots instead of lines quite a lot of time because of the nature of the noise that I used. But yeah, essentially this will give you a slope directional warp, if you will, something like that. Yes, mosaic warp is a new node for me as well, Mike, and yeah, apparently it's very useful for this sort of thing precisely. Yeah. Okay, and then I'm blending it in. I don't know if we can see it. Hopefully you can see the map that we have these like darker cracks, we have the lighter edges, we have some of these like specks here and there that comes from the undulation, and then we have the slope crumble. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, here. I don't know. It's really subtle. Maybe I should have gone a bit more. But you will see what it does, right? Like you can see that it covers the sort of the ridge and goes perpendicular to the ridge, which is exactly what I wanted. So let's just be really subtle. Okay, I think this is good. We'll see in 4K whether this is too strong or not, right? Okay, so most of these details are meant to be like high resolution, low frequency, high frequency and high resolution. Yeah. Okay. Then I'm just taking this generic map that I created, and I'm creating directional warp, two directional warps to again emphasize the two directions that my dunes have, right? So essentially using the same Perlin noise and then blending it together with the mask that I use. No, it's actually okay. I didn't even like mask it for each direction. I'm just blending between two directional warps, each at a different angle. So I'm like pushing the dunes in their own directions, if that makes sense. But only blending with like a few Perlin noises there. You can see we still have the seam, but that's going to be like very easily remedied with a make seamless node down the line. So I don't really worry about this too much. It didn't create any artifacts, and honestly, I could just blur it, but it's fine. We are going to use make seamless later. All right, then I'm like warping it here and there again. Additional detail, of course, right? Generally, and I guess this is one of the good things I did in this graph is that I really kept like working from the large shapes to like really small details. Even though this is very much a like overly focused on the small details, but it's sand, right? Like it's sand. There are really no like large details at this scale. The largest details we get are like these really long waves that go through the whole material. The mid-level detail, I guess, in this case would be like the ridges, and everything else is like pretty small and comes from the rocks actually and the pebbles. So in this case, there is a bit of an exception that we don't really have like strong, large-scale details. But generally speaking, that's how you should be working on it, I think. One of the things Johnny mentioned there is that like beginners focus too much on like this very zoomed in noise, right? Because this creates details and it's easy to actually get from details, but it's almost impossible to control it. Like you're very much dependent on what kind of noise you pick. I don't know if that makes sense, but maybe you should watch the video he made. He explains it better. But yeah, I would say I was fairly guilty of that mistake in this case, but at the same time it's sand, so it's a bit forgiving. You can focus mostly on the noise instead of like a good balance of large, medium, and super small scale details. All right, now I wasn't happy with the way this looked. It really looked a bit stylized, and so what I did, I basically squished it. Right? Gives me more of a stretched look, which was more in accord with the reference. Okay, again, using curves to sort of create the right sort of shape for the peaks. But I wasn't really like convinced this was the better version, so I made a compromise, right? I made a compromise. I took this and blended it back in. You can actually do that in the curves nodes as well. You can control it with the opacity slider. I wanted the full effect of this and see how it blends together. So what I'm actually doing is like taking 80% of this map and just blending in some of the like sharper details I had from the map before. Okay, and now we are using the make seamless. You can see that there is a bit of a seam there, right? Like at a large enough scale, it completely disappears. Like who's going to notice that, right? Like you would have to be, I don't even know. Like here, there is a white line here. So in case of a texture like this, make seamless is a godsend, and like there is nothing better. Like you will get slightly less detail, slightly more blurry seams, but you can cover that with pebbles and stuff, and no one's gonna be the wiser. Okay, what else is there? All right, so now for the warping of the sand around the rocks. It's actually quite simple. I have to credit Dan Betke for this, but it's a well-known technique. It's just that I learned it from his video about the lava material that he had made for the contest, the InstaMAT contest. You can find it on his channel, Dan Betke, B-A-D-T-K-A-E, actually, not A-E. He works for InstaMAT. He's a very talented material artist, and yeah, he created a pretty cool like warping lava river material, and so it's not too difficult. what we need is to take the resulting rocks mask, essentially, right? Like we have these rocks. I've isolated it with a black and white mask, almost black and white mask. And yeah, I made a few adjustments so that the rocks weren't like all the way white, all the way to the white. I just wanted them to be a bit like less prominent. It's not the word I'm looking for, like not protruding as much, right? And that's going to be our base height for the intermaterial. And so what we need to do is to warp the sand around it, right? So I blurred this because it was very sharp, of course, and we are using directional warps. Yeah. So I'm warping the sand where it's and this with this intensity input. And so where it's white, it's going to warp the most. So it's warping the most under the rocks. But that's exactly what we want. We don't want these artifacts, right? Like, but we want the waves that are sort of like touching the rocks. Now this is a bit stylized. I haven't figured out like a better way to think about this, because what I wanted to simulate was like a buildup of sand around the rocks, right? But at the same time, I wanted to add motion to the material, sort of like it's strange, it's texture, right? Like I'm not animating anything, but a suggestion of motion. And of course, in the desert, it's the wind. It's the wind and the sand abrasion and everything that suggests like the directionality of the material. And so in this case, it was quite easy. I just warped it in one direction. Yeah, I'm using a direction, the number of directions is 1, and I'm using it at an angle of 220 degrees, which is essentially this. And yeah, I'm taking the original and blending it with this newly warped sand material. I don't know if this is necessary. I could have just kept the directional warp, but I liked that it gave me a bit more detail, like a bit more breakup around the edges of the rocks. And since this is dependent on the height map, if I were to change the rocks, this is obviously going to follow the shapes of the rocks. So this is entirely procedural, and it looks as if it was like a sea of sand, that's almost ocean of sand, that's like catching at the cliffs. I don't know if this is super realistic. Mostly, I think what you get in the desert is like the sand's directionality is more based on like the height differential. So the sand sort of crumbles down the hill, obviously. But we are making a flat material, so it's a bit difficult. All right, so yeah, it's a suggestion of this kind of effect. I can show you in the reference. This is it, right? Like you can see that it's catching a little bit here and there, right? It's the buildup, but it's going down the hill, so it's not the same. But well, what can you do? A stylistic choice, I would say. But you definitely need to sell the effect that the sand is somehow like naturally interacting with the rocks, and I couldn't think of a better way, right? If you just slap the sand on top of your material, it's going to look awful. It's going to look exactly like something you slapped on top of your material. It's not great. So yeah, we are doing that twice, just to get a bit more of an effect. Blending it in with an average so that I lose some of the super sharp detail. If I didn't do that, I would have had a lot more, like the frequency of the dunes around the rocks would be too high, right? Like instead of having like 4 or 5 and naturally blending into the rest of the environment, I would have like 7 that would go nowhere, right? Because it's offset. So it's that was actually a good solution there. Okay, I need to get some drink. So again, my delicious tea. All right, let me see the chat. Okay, nothing new. All right, so then I'm just introducing some general height differences. Basically, I think a Berlin noise, turbulent Berlin noise, and just adding it so that the sand is not the same height all the time. It looked a bit too much like water, you know, when I was working on it. Without this, it wasn't that great. And also, like, I added as much as I thought was like possible physically in terms of like how flat the material is. But if you overdo this, I think you can sell the effect of like the sand rolling downhill. So maybe that would have been a better way to do this. All right, moving on. Oh yeah, so and then that's it. That's essentially the base for the well, yeah, for the sand. Um, the really like this super grainy detailing comes a bit later, but it's mostly color and roughness and a bit of normal combination. I have this normal flakes node, which is very useful. It gives you like super small grainy details like you would have in I don't know, in a car paint, for example, but also ice, sand, obviously, like anything that's really coarse but at the same time fine. Normal flakes is your friend. Now, what I did here, I used normal combine and masked it and controlled the opacity. What I could have actually done, I could have used the mask directly here and the height to normal directly and just use this output because you have the controls here. So at the time I didn't realize that I can just like pass it through and use the mask there. It's essentially what it is. Like it's going to normal combine it. It's in there. It's in the node. But I did it this way. It's more verbose, if you will. Okay, so that's that. I'm combining it again with the mask for the rocks here, and I'm adding a lot of like subtle height differentiation, and yeah, that helps with like how the sand interacts with the light. Anyway, that's getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, so what I did for the most part was just the dunes with a bit of detailing and warping. Like nothing too crazy. It's actually very easy to make sand once you know how to approach this. Of course, there are different kinds of sand. You could have something that's extremely like mixed with pebbles and rocks. The Qatari Desert doesn't have that, or at least not from the photos I've seen. So I guess in this sense, it's easier. All right. Now, we don't have curves in InstaMAT yet. And again, it's a detail that apparently seems to work mostly in 4K, but you can see that I added some creature tracks. It's a fun little detail that I saw in one of the references. I don't know, like the size of a large ant maybe, or like some, I don't know, some rodent, yeah, like a hamster or something like that, like running in between the rocks. I mean, you kind of have to stick to it being pretty much a straight line. Like that's a bit warped because we can't really like place it with a curve yet and have it follow the curve. Again, it's coming, right? So how do you create a footprint? Well, depending on what you want, right? Like you could make a bird's footprint. Why not? But then you would have to model a what's it called in English? Well, basically a bird's leg. Yeah. But in this case, I just went for a generic footprint shape because it was going to be so small. So yeah, I take a capsule, mirror it, then I use style scatter, and it creates a lot of little footprints, little tracks. Then I bend it, then I swirl it a little bit, then I transform it so that it's like at an angle, and I warped it directionally a little bit to sort of introduce as if the sort of the sometimes like the sand would cover it, sometimes it would be perfectly visible, and we are blending it onto our height map somewhere. I can't see it, but trust me, it's there. It's very subtle. I'm just subtracting like 2%. You know, I don't want it to be too intense. And then I sort of use the color map to emphasize it a little bit. I used just a like fairly darker sand color to show it a bit more. Okay, so that's the footprint detail. Yes. sand grain. So sand grain is just noise. I guess for the most part, it depends on the kind of desert you're in. I thought, like, I got the impression that the Qatari Desert is a pretty old desert and very fine sand everywhere. So I just use fractal noise. And I also used a bit of that grain noise I had from before to create larger specks. Then I took the same grain noise and I just sharpened it really like a lot, so to get these like sharp shapes. And I'm blending it all together. Usually just like 2% at a time, like nothing too crazy, right? Like I'm almost working at a normal scale detail. So in fact I am, but I wanted to have a bit of a sort of a hint of it in the height map. Yeah, so that's how I did it. Very easy. All right, and then we are taking this base and putting it all together with the mask for the height of the rocks again. Yeah, so here I have the grayscale mask of the rocks again, plus some of the larger pebbles. I'm beveling it to get like softer edge. Then I'm actually pushing it in this direction and sobering it a little bit so that the sand sometimes gets like on the rocks a bit more. It's not height dependent, so it's like it might be a bit confusing to the eye, but it actually gave me quite an more natural feel to how the rocks blend together. And I also subtracted that shape from the mask, and so it gave me some of the sand on the rocks as well. Yeah, blurring it, leveling it, blending it in. Also, I think what it does is I actually lowered the sand on one side of the rocks. I don't know if that's realistic, but you know, when the wind is blowing from one side, there's going to be the buildup is going to be mostly on one side. Yeah, you know. So I tried to create like a bit of a slump around the rocks, again suggesting a better blending of the material. It's again very subtle. Not sure if it's worth it. Not sure if it's realistic. I was just experimenting at that point. Okay, now before we talk about the crazy problem that's the pebbles and the little stones that I have here, let's talk about the twigs. I don't know if you can see, but I have little twigs in here. I saw that in the reference. There is some flora in the desert, mostly like very dry bushes, right? And so I wanted a suggestion of some wood. Yeah, but I was really tired at the point, and I didn't want to create a whole new twig generator myself because it's a lot of like actually quite easy modeling, but it's a bit tiring. And I went into one of the InstaMAT's materials, and I found it. I found a twig generator in one of them. I don't remember which one, but it's one of those like forest ground materials, and they have a pretty nice looking twig. Very simple, right? So yeah, that's what I took. I took it. I copied it. I copied the node setup, the group, and I made it into a subgraph for my material. I just added it to my package and saved it, right? So because you can't just like, I could have like copy pasted it from the material into this, but I wanted to be able to control the generator separately in case, you know, just in case. And so we can open the graph. It's this setup, right? Like you can see that it would be like really annoying to do this all by myself. Figure out how the noises work and all that. Like, you know, it's maybe for someone who knows how to do it, it's like 15 minutes, but at the time I didn't really couldn't be bothered. So yeah, they create the shapes. There are like 3 versions plus a few versions of the bark. And when you copy it, of course you lose these output nodes. So you just have to go through it again and set up your outputs again. In fact, I didn't have to set up these outputs at all because I wasn't going to use them. I was only interested in these like 3 shapes of the twigs. So that's what I did. I stole it, but it's InstaMAT, right? We can use it. So yeah, I stole the twigs and the bark, and yeah, I took all 3 of those shapes. Whoops, 1, 2, 3, and I was going to do some operations on them again, on all 3 of them. So again, we are channel composing. Then we are warping it, swirling it, warping it, leveling it out, and then I'm taking just just the one. I ended up taking just the one. No, actually, I didn't. I'm using all 3 of them in this guided scatter, and I have 3 of those, right? And the tiled scatter or the guided scatter gives you a pattern setting here on the right side with a count of 3, and the distribution is random, so it picks randomly among them. So that's or from them. So that's how I got the twigs, and that's it. Really, like there is no more science to this, right? And like it's such a small detail. Again, maybe they could have been larger. I don't know. Maybe they should be larger. In fact, right? Like twigs can be quite large, even from bushes in the desert. But yeah, I kept them fairly small. I guess I committed the same mistake that Johnny warned us about. I guess I kept focusing on the small detail too much. So if I were to do this again, I guess I would create like a middle-sized rock here and there, maybe, and like try to have like 2 layers of twigs. Maybe one that's like, I don't know, medium-sized, again, like the size of this rock, maybe, and these small ones. So yeah, if I had spent more time on this, I would have definitely done that. All right. Then I'm iterating, to get more of those. I thought that it was going to show, but not really, right? Like I thought we are going to get like super tiny pieces of wood. Sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't, but maybe it's too much, too little, too small for this texture. Yeah, just doing some fine adjustments there, and yeah, I'm actually creating a mask. I wanted to differentiate it. I didn't want the twigs to be everywhere, so I just subtracted some noise from it. Okay. And it's blending here, right? Like I'm blending the twigs in here. Like you can see these white lines. Those are the twigs, the little branches of doom. Okay. Now let me turn on my light. It's getting dark in here. Okay. Nice. I need a better HDRI in my apartment. Okay. So, the pebbles. Oh my god. What a stupid approach. So, what I did, right? What did I do? Why am I so stupid? I took a single noise that drives all of those. The small ones, the medium ones alike. Don't ever do this, because any problem you might have will propagate through the whole graph. So at this point, I wanted to add more pebbles, like really small pebbles like these, right? And I wanted to edit them a little more so that they wouldn't like be swallowed by the sand. But I can't, because it changes everything about the graph going, that's coming up. And so I have these shapes that are okay. Yeah, again, I would like to break them up some more, but I can't because I'm stupid, and this stone noise is driving everything, and including me, and it's driving me crazy. So don't do this. Don't do this. Zero control over your graph. That's always bad. So what I would do next time is create, again, maybe 2 different subgraphs. Like this, I would create a small pebble generator. It's so easy to create pebbles, really. Or even better, get a scan, right? There are so many scans online. For example, you can, I don't know if you know the website, it's called Texture Share, if I'm not mistaken. Texture Share? Texture Share? Yes. texture share, and you can go to textures, and there will be atlases somewhere, and you have amazing rocks from the nature, right? Like take something like this, take this stone, and you've got almost perfect pebbles. You don't have to be stupid like me. So yeah. Anyhow, at least I can show you what not to do. So don't take a noise, like I did. Don't slow blur it. Don't high pass it. Don't level it out. Don't try to recuperate some of the detail with blur. Don't try to sharpen that again. And don't try to blend it over with some noise, right? Like, don't do this. Then I take some curves to bring in some of the contrast. And you can see, like, I'm getting some pebbles, but again, I think they are too small, first of all. So if I try to make them bigger now, it's too late. I would have to change the noise, I would have to change all of that. But the real mistake happens here. I take this result, instead of like creating this whole thing again for the larger ones, I just save transformed it. and bundled it in and did some stupid stuff, and in the end I get some bigger ones, and they are like so very obviously tiling as well. And yeah, you just don't get any control over the size or the shape of the pebbles. And you can see I'm doing some really crazy stuff with the curves to even be able to do this. So I get like really like, how do I put this? Like they just go up. Yeah, these rocks, they just go up. It's like a little what's it called? Mesa, mesa, like mesa. You know, like highlands, you know, in a highland mountain. I don't know if that makes any sense, but hopefully you understand me. If not, I'll try to come up with better words in the comments. Anyway, so and then I just do the same thing like we always do. We introduce some detail with directional warp, etc., etc., and then we blend it in. Yeah, so you can see that they are like quite prominent. They are one of the like, they are definitely the tallest, the most displaced thing in the sand texture. So to recapitulate, to recap a little bit, I definitely wouldn't do this again. I would create two cobblestones, or not cobblestones, two pebblestones, generators, one for the super small ones, for like really fragmented ones, and another one for the medium-sized ones. And then I would also be able to control the albedo much better. Let me show you what I saw in the reference. It's like this sort of detritus that's there. That's what I wanted to create. And you can see that the distribution of the stones is like so much better. You have these like super small ones, and then like a bit larger. You can see that, and you have like these like medium ones. But when you look even at the smallest rocks, these are actually quite big, right? Already, and there are so many of them. You get an entire river of pebbles, of stones. Again, if we look at this, it's so colorful. I love this. I wish I was able to do that, but I was just stupid. You know, it's bad when you're stupid. So don't be stupid. I would love to have this like red in my material, like to break up the monochromacity that I have right now. So yeah, don't do as I do. Again, like very fine, like medium ones, like probably rocks protruding quite a bit. Yeah, enough said. So that's that. Okay, one last detail that I added. Let me find it. I saw that some of the sand in my reference, where is it? Here, mostly. That we get these lines. I don't know if that's like, again, some creature that passed through, or is it some roots, or is it maybe some like water that used to run there? Honestly, I don't know. I also saw it somewhere else, but I don't remember. Sometimes it happens. Yeah, sometimes there is this thing there. I think here, yeah, you can see some of the lines created by, I guess it's mostly the water, or like the crumbling of the sand. So I tried to recreate that, but I was really like tired. So what I did, I just created a crack. Whoops, whoopsie daisy. I hate this. Created a crack, slow blurred it to sort of chip into it. I didn't want it to be that wide. And then I did random scatter. Random scatter does as advertised. It scatters the image a couple of times. Blending mode to maximum, the count was like 13. It was a bit of a like trying to get the scale right and the count right. And yeah, I'm just warping it a little bit and then blending it in. So I don't know, can we even see it? I don't know, can we? What does it look like? Okay. Well, it's there. It's somewhere. Again, a detail that's like really small, and maybe I should have thought more about like the texture how the texture would be used at 2K. Here you can see it here. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, it's a really small detail. So only visible at 4K, and again, like the material is missing something in the middle between the rocks and the sand. It feels a little barren. Okay, it's a desert, but it's still a barren material. All right, and that's it. That's it. That's pretty much it for the height map. The rest is color and roughness. My approach to the albedo was to color the rocks and the sand separately, and then blend it together, just like I did with the height. Yeah, I thought I would get more control, which is correct. But what I would do now, I would add something to really tie it up, right? Like right now we have this like really strong, sharp color separation, and again, we get that in the reference image, right? Like there is this like gray stone with like orange yellow sand. The issue is this is dependent on lighting, and I think the photographer might have done something to the image in the post, obviously, right? Like he sort of emphasized that difference. In reality, I imagine it's something like this, right? Like it's almost the same color, again, like a grays and the sand color. So I guess at this point I started creating something very stylized. Here, this is like what I would have liked, but I ended up having something very white. Let me actually show you the final albedo map. It looks like this. Like it's not as wide as it looks in the viewport because of the HDRI. It's like fairly similar in terms of color, but I'm losing a bit of that gray tone to it. So I will have to test render this and see what happens, right? Like I was actually very happy with the material at first, but then like looking at this with hindsight, I actually don't think I'm gonna put this onto my portfolio. I think it's kind of bad. Maybe just the sand, maybe, but maybe I'll just make it anew and better. You know. All right, so the albedo looks like that. Now the question is, do I want to keep streaming? What's the time? Oh, it's 9, so I've been streaming for about an hour. Is anyone still here? All right, I guess I can just do a very quick overview of the rocks. If I stop repeating myself, of the color. Sorry, I guess I'm getting tired, but I'm gonna be very quick about this. So, another mistake that Johnny points out is that it's fine to base your maps on your height map. In fact, you get a lot of detail right away. But the issue is you have to sort of, he uses the word to divorce it from the height map, right? Like you can take it from the height map, but you have to divorce the height map. Some childhood issues there, right? But anyway, the idea is that like you don't want all the details to be dependent on a height map. So because then whatever is higher will be picking the grade, will be picking the same colors over and over again. So you have to cover it up. For the for the dunes, I guess it doesn't matter that much. And I actually wanted them to be a bit sort of brighter on the top. So I kept it mostly dependent on the height of the curvature, actually, right? So you can see like the curvature part is like giving me the whites at the edges, obviously, and the blacks in the concave. Sorry, concave. Concave, convex. I always confuse the concave and convex. I have to sort of think about it. But you know what curvature does, right? Like it looks at the image and looks at the angles of the height map and like the differences between them, and it gives you two maps for this. So whatever is like, so this is concave. So I guess that's sort of what's in the, you can think about it a bit like ambient occlusion. What's like in the crevices, and whatever is convex, that's like on the edges. That's like what's exposed to the elements and all that. So like you would definitely use convex for like edge wear and concave for like dirt, for example. And you get a combined map with these two together. So that's a good start. It gives you a lot of detail already from the height map. All this grain gets included. You can control this with the radius. So the smaller the radius, the more noisy it's going to be, the more grainy, detailed it's going to be. You can also control the sharpness here. It's good. It's a good note, of course. Everyone knows height to curvature. I don't know why I'm talking about it too much. Anyhow, I'm using that for a gradient map. So I get like a really monochromatic thing because it's mostly flat, right, with a bit of curvature. So this is okay in this case, right? Like but if you had something like rocks, for example, again, and you just use this to drive the whole albedo map, it would be so heavily dependent on the curvature and the height map. And if you ever make any change to the height map, it will really affect your albedo as well. So it's one of the biggest mistakes he points out. Here I did a better job because I used a lot more maps. I actually used two heights to curvature, height to ambient occlusion. I also use a lot of noises to drive and I introduced noises throughout the coloration process. So it's a lot more independent of what the height map actually looks like. And obviously I try to control what elements get what color. So you get like more hands-on layering approach to what you're doing. So, but let's start with the sand. Right, the sand is mostly grain, so plus some pebbles, plus some twigs. So it's not difficult. So yeah, I just sampled some colors for the gradient dynamic maps. And I just keep using noises to introduce more and more variation. I don't know how much this is going to show across the stream, over the stream, but that's it. Bit of HSL. Moving on, I get a grain noise that feeds another gradient map. This time it's like these like dark dots. I noticed that the sand seems to be like have a lot of really dark brown in it in some of the photos. So I'm doing that, which is really good. Actually, that really improved the map. And then I decided this is good enough. Like it should be monochromatic, right? Like I could have maybe used a let's say something like turbulent purlin or clouds and just like differentiate a little bit all over. Yeah, probably a good idea, but I didn't do it. So if you want to have a more interesting material, I would introduce more surface variation overall in terms of color. Anyway, now I'm brightening these peaks of the dunes a little bit. So I'm taking a color, this like a yellowish color. I'm blending it in a little bit. I don't know if we can see it. Where is it? Here. You can see that the peaks get brighter. It's a stylistic choice. I saw it in one of the photos. I think it's a lighting effect, so it's not a good idea to do this. This is definitely like, the sun is coming from, I don't know, somewhere. But you can see the direction definitely, right? These are the shadows, pretty long ones. And so the sun is probably quite low. It's like the evening, I guess. And so you get like really sharp edge highlights. And we are baking that into albedo, which is like a no-no. Yeah, but I did it anyway. At this point, I was fairly convinced that the material is going to turn up like turn out to be on the stylized side more than the realistic side. So I started adding these like little things that I thought would make it a bit better. You know, so as I was getting disenchanted with the material, I started adding more non-realistic elements. All right, so we have that, the brightening. Then this was one of the effects that I saw again in the reference. Let's see here. You can see that there are at least like wind lines. It's not wind lines. Like, you know, the sand is crumbling and the rocks are like breaking that wave of the crumbling sand. So and I can also see that the sand gets brighter. I don't know why, but it gets brighter. I guess I don't know. I guess it's like older sand, so it's brighter. Probably. I don't know. So I wanted to do that. We use the rock mask for this, right? And we use direction warp with a gradient linear for it to slow blur in this case, slow blur, not directional warp. You can see that it's again introducing a bit of tiling. It won't be visible, so I don't care. Yeah, because you know the gradient linear just goes from one direction to the other, and you will get a break here somewhere. Yeah, in this case here, you will get a break. So you don't want to do that, but I did it anyway. Again, a mistake. Again, Johnny points out some fixes or some alternative approaches. I think he uses height shadows for this. Let me see if we have height shadows node here. I'm pretty sure we do. Yeah. So what height shadows does, let me pull some nice height map somewhere. Let's try this. Yeah, it basically projects shadows from one side. You can simulate a sun lamp this way, which is exactly what I was doing here, right? Like I was with the slow blur, I was trying to blur the shapes in one direction. Had I used height shadows only, it gives you the shadows mask, and you can isolate it with like a histogram scan, for example, the select thing. And I think we would have to do this. That's the wrong one. Come on. You would have to isolate the blacks, right? It's not difficult. I just my brain isn't working anymore. So you can do this instead of trying to slow blur the rock mask in one direction and getting artifacts. And I could have used directional warp again, but that would create a lot of artifacts that I didn't want. At this point, I wasn't really thinking too clearly, so not the best solution. Another mistake. Yeah, I'm adding some noise just to break it up a little bit, and we are using that as a mask. And you can see it creates these like white areas, and I don't know if you can see. Yeah, here, for example, you get like a whiter spot. And here, it's not as prominent as I would like. Again, should be much better. Should be much better, and I think the effect should be much stronger. So maybe we can. Yeah, that's better, a little better. Yeah, you can see these like lines going. Yeah, next time I would go differently about this. Okay. Now we have this node height slope extract. Yep, it says it's kind of like a curvature map a little bit. So you just have to play with it. I don't really like know how to explain this to you. You get like a couple of directions that you can use, a couple of ways to detect the slopes in your image, like the differences in your height map. And yeah, you have a range to isolate them, and it creates like an edge-wear kind of mask, right? And I'm using that to actually darken them a little bit. So on one side, I was adding the highlights, right? And then I wanted to add a bit of like darker color. So in order to suggest the like the different sides of the dunes, right? Like one is lit, one isn't lit. At this point, I was really like baking in lighting. Again, a no-go, right? Like don't do this in like if you want to have like a generally applicable material, but a stylistic choice. It creates a bit of contrast. So if we look at the resulting height map, we have the sort of the ridges, highlights, and a bit of dark color behind it. Yeah, that's these. It basically shadows, basically baked in shadows. All right. Then I'm adding a bit of color variation. I used soft light. Soft light is interesting because it works like both on the saturation and the sort of luminance at the same time, and it references the middles, right? Like the middle grays and the middle values. So for that, it will introduce like a saturation variation and also luminance variation at the same time. So it's like a shortcut. But be very careful. If you overdo it, your image can be easily like have some really insane hues and really insane saturation values. So at this point, I'm just using like 20% here. I don't know if we can see the effect. Not really. What was the opacity mask? It's just noise. It's just color variation. You know, I spoke about like using maybe clouds to introduce overall color variation on your material. This is it. I don't know. Like maybe it shows over a stream that there are like darker spots and whiter spots suddenly. I mean, I can crank it up. You see, like it affected it in sort of one way. It made it yellow and a lot more saturated. So that's it. But as you can see, that becomes really unrealistic. So I'm just gonna go back to maybe 30. Let's see. Yeah, 30 is okay. I think it added a bit more, I guess. Not sure how much that comes across over YouTube. All right, mini cracks. Yes, this is something that would come at 4K very much, because if you remember, we added these super fine detailed cracks. We have to let we have to let it recompute again. All right, there we go. I don't know if we can see it. Again, too small a detail. Yeah, but you can see that we have like these yellowish cracks across the whole thing. Not sure how realistic that is, but maybe if the sand was a bit like had a really like a crust on top, this would be it. So I'm taking the mask that we had before, the crack masks, and the larger undulation mask, I think, and I'm using that to drive the color. So it creates these like yellowish, brighter spots. Yeah, I don't know how much you can see. Anyway, that's it. Then I'm using a version of this that's really like dark. I like pushed it into like 20% lower in luminance, yeah, 17%, and that's driving these little footprints. So before that, they are like lost in the color, and they are also lost in the sand quite a bit. And I decided, like, since I'm already baking in lighting, why not just add it? You know, it's like, let's call it cracks ambient occlusion at a microscopic scale. I don't know. So yeah, I'm doing that. I also didn't want the rocks. Sorry, I didn't want the tracks to cover to be on top of the rocks, right? That's unrealistic. So that's I'm handling that there. And some more color variation with the color variance. The trusty color variance node introduces grain that sort of shifts your hues and saturations and luminances in a specified range. So that's that. And final tweaks with the HSL node. I guess you've seen me do this in like all the streams so far. The final color variance and HSL tweaks. And then we are blading it in with the rocks. So let's have a quick look at the rocks. So I began by pulling a lot of the maps. So I started with the height, and I created a few maps. First of all, the height to curvature at different sizes, at different Why isn't it low? Oh, we are at 4K. It's going to take a while. Yes, this is a like a really low radius, so it gives me a super sharp detail and like a really like separated edges. This one is has a bit larger radius. So in fact, like whenever if you know in like the painter aspect of InstaMAT or in Substance Painter, there is this height to curvature, and it has like wavelet isolation algorithm in it. Basically, what it does is like it takes different radiuses, different radii, sorry, different radii to drive that. So you can create a couple of these. They are super expensive, of course, but you can do that, and you can have like again like a staggered layered cascade of height to curvature detailing, which might be good if you're in need of that. I'm also taking the height to ambient occlusion. This is to sort of isolate these concave shapes, and I'm going to use that to put some dirt on it. Yeah. So again, I'm actually using a ray traced mode here because of the super fine detail that we have in the sand. But quite often you don't have to do that. It gets really expensive once you start ray tracing, of course. So I'm actually lowering the quality. Sometimes this introduces noise, but since we are not using it for the ambient occlusion, but we are using it as a mask, that's actually not bad, right? Like more noise usually means more detail. So I keep it, but we invert it because this is a mask, right? So white is what's going to show the effect. I'm going to be processing this a few times, right? Like multiplying it with some noises to break it up. It's very recognizable. Once you know what you're looking at, if you just use the ambient occlusion to color your material, it's very recognizable, so you absolutely have to break it up with some noises. Alright then, so I'm starting with a simple fractal sum, auto-leveling it to get a bit more contrast, and we are picking a gradient. Then we are also picking another gradient. I think it's the stone noise that I had before, the stone noise that I used to create the stupid pebbles. So, but at least it's useful for something else, right? I'm also I also brought a lot of maps that I might need during the texturing. So that's usually how I begin, right? Like I create these height to curvature, ambient occlusion, and just the height map itself. And I create a few generic masks that I know I'll be using. And then I bring in some of the noises, the masks usually, that I use to blend various elements of the graph. I use the assign image, which is a zero computing cost node. Basically, it just brings the image and passes it through this node. So it's like a placeholder so that you have a preview of what you have. Because if you just brought the reroutes, or if you actually brought something like levels or whatever, there is a computing overhead. So you don't want to do that. You want to use the assign image. And yeah, I'm bringing in a few of those nodes that or the images, the masks that we had from before. And then I start like adding them together. Okay, another gradient map, just a lot of color variation from all the images I had. Some of it is pretty strong. Doesn't matter because it gets blended in with some noises, right? Like it's already quite noisy, and it's already a lot of detail, but I also want to break it up, right? That's another thing that Johnny mentioned. Don't leave this opacity mask unused, right? You can always add more detail, more variation, more variance, if you like, to your material by using a noise to break stuff up. And you can also control it a lot more. So I generally just plug in something. And I'm happy to say that this is one of the mistakes that I'm not guilty of, you know? Anyhow, yep, more color. It's actually on the pink side that I notice it right now. I may have to tweak it with different HDRI later. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm blending in these like directional details because the rocks, they are fairly directional, right? Like there isn't much color variation on the rocks in the reference. Yep, like especially here there's almost nothing, but here also not much, right? Like you get a bit of the sand here and there in those crevices. I didn't make that, as I said, but like you can do that. And that's it. Otherwise, it's like pretty much 50% gray, I would say. So no color variation almost, like a bit of like brownish coloration here. Yeah, so I kept it fairly monochromatic with a bit of dirt. Again, taking these cracks that we had before as a mask and blending it in for more color variation. I don't even know if we can see it. Probably not. So background. Can we? Background. Yes, it adds a little bit. I don't know. It probably doesn't show too much. The same here. Yeah. So we had this before, and now we get these like long lines, white lines, to create a bit of difference there, variation. All right, now I'm taking this, I think it's actually an adjusted curvature mask. Yeah, definitely a curvature mask. I just leveled it, I clipped it a little bit, and I'm using that for to emphasize the curvature of the rocks, right? Like again, a bit stylized. Usually people overdo this. I like to keep it like fairly toned down. I don't want like to have like crazy highlights on everything, right? That's a mistake in my opinion. Like you can see it, it's there. Yeah, it's like it's there, and you can see it on the material as well. Like it highlights these edges. It's actually too much for me. Yeah, yeah. I would never really go too high with this. You you take the color you had before. You push in some of the lightness, and you blend it in back in. Yeah, I wouldn't use something as drastic as screen or add, right? Just average is fine, just to get a bit of like you know, bit on the bright side on the edges. It helps to emphasize the general shape of your rock or whatever you're working on. But if you do too much of it, it's definitely jumps in the highlight in the stylized highlight kind of area or region very quickly. Okay. I'm losing my voice here, so but we are almost done. Let's take a dirt noise and sharpen it quite a bit because we want to get like a really prominent dirt specks. And I'm using this guided HSL to again introduce sort of a gradient map and blend it in. Creates a lot of dirt variation here. And I think I'm using the AO here. Yes, I'm using the AO. I processed it with levels. And basically what it does is like in these crevices, it's going to add the dirt, the brownish dirt. It's actually quite too brown for me right now. I would probably change the color to something less crazy. Let's actually just introduce a bit of value there. Oh my god, the graph is really unresponsive. Alright, let's not do that right now. Maybe it's a saturation problem. It definitely feels like a saturation problem actually. So let's lower the saturation to something less insane. Did that work? It's a small detail. I couldn't be bothered anymore. And then I do this again with another AO map, different noise, different grunge, this time spots, 7, and yep, I'm adding more. So, yep, you can see it. This might actually be the one that really makes it wrong. Yeah, it seems better. So I almost remove all the saturation. It's like a brown, sorry, it's like black almost. It actually makes sense in this case, I think. Let's not do too much, but just a little bit of color. Just a little bit of color. Okay, maybe this. Yes. Slightly brown, slightly brown. That's what we are looking for. Okay. Yeah. Then I actually created these super small pits, if you remember, in the height map for the rocks. And here we are using that map to introduce some mostly AO kind of darkening, right? Like I guess I didn't even have to do this, but it's a nice detail. So I added like little sediments of sand in there, like deposits of sand. All right, so here we are trying to salvage the pebbles. It's not working. It's simply not working. But I guess I had an interesting approach to someone. So I created a gradient linear and quantized it. And then I'm using that for the gradient map. So this is kind of like a sort of almost a flood fill processing of a way of generating color. I could have like run this through the flood fill and flood fill random color, or and use the gradient there. It's unnecessary if you're just looking for the color. So I actually have flood fill, but this flood fill is isolating the different pebbles, right, that I have here, and I'm using this to drive the color of the flood fill to color. You have to set the mode to sample from image. If you do that, you can plug in this gradient map and it will choose randomly from the colors in this image. Bear in mind that the columns have to be vertical, right? Because if you do it the other way, you will just get one solid color. It samples from left to right. Hence, the gradient goes like this. Yeah. All right. Again, trying to do more of the same, trying to introduce more color variation for the larger rocks, like these, right? It doesn't show that much. In the end, I chose to average it in, and you can see that the mask is really stupidly imperfect, right? Like that's horrible. Like here, like I get some color that's not even there. There is no rock there, as far as I know, because it's based on the wrong mask. Yeah, I really cocked it up. But at least I tried. At least I tried. Let's keep it at that. So we tried and failed. I tried and failed, and I added a lot of bad colors to something that's not supposed to be like that. But that's fine. Okay, then I realized that this whole thing is really like pink, right? And so I just started adding some colors from before and tweaking the colors by using various noises and stuff like that. So instead of having like pink rocks, I started adding in a lot of white and a lot of yellow to push the rocks where I wanted them to be. And of course, a final touch of color variance. We then blend it together, and to add some final details, I added the color for the twigs. So you can see it's mostly this orange color. And yeah, like I said, optional homogenizing touch. I tried to bring it all together using just a couple of noises and blending it together in a cascade fashion again. It doesn't add too much, but it's a bit of variation across the whole image, so it sort of brings it all together. I think I've already mentioned that this is a step that I should have done. I should have done more of this. I should have blended the materials together better. So another mistake, I suppose. I should really like do maybe 2 more steps of this and really like use like purlins and clouds to bring this all together in terms of color. Okay. Should I finish? I'm gonna finish this because I actually don't like this material, so I want to be done with it. So the roughness. Again, another mistake is to have this be entirely dependent on your albedo or your height. Yeah, because if you've already based your albedo on the height map and didn't do any like substantial breakup of that map, if you also base your roughness map on that albedo, it's all going to be tied together in the wrong way because it's going to be dependent on the height. So what's going to be up, right, in the height map is going to pick certain parts of the gradient maps, and that will eventually somehow uncontrollably propagate to your roughness map. So what I would do, and what Johnny suggests doing, is to maybe take this as a base, but try to remove as much contrast as you can from it. so that you get a value that makes sense. And so what I did, I actually high passed it. This in this case, I'm actually using this offset function that pushes it into the whites, because the material should be quite rough. It should be like sand can be really rough, right? It maybe even 0.9 is a decent value for sand. Something between like 0.75, 0.9, 0.95 is a really good value for your sand. So that's what I did. I also do that little trick that I sort of squash the range and have it be between 40 and 96 in this case, just to be in the ballpark of the of the values I want. And then I'm trying to handpick the values that I want. So in this case, this is the edge roughness, probably for the rocks mostly. Yes. So essentially your edge wear roughness. For that, I'm using 0.5. Again, not the smartest thing to do. I think your edge wear should actually be rougher, but you won't really notice it here, so it doesn't really matter that much. Also, I'm averaging it, so it's not that intense of an effect, right? Like you can see it, that it went from this like super rough edge to something that's like almost like 50% glossy, but that's fine. Yeah. Then I wanted the pebbles to be quite glossy, just to give the material a bit of an interest. Like maybe you look at the pebbles and it shines a little bit, Not sure why I would do that, but that was my thinking at the time. So I did that. I did that again. The pits I actually made quite rough because it's like the interior of the stone. The twigs, it's wood, so again 0.7, 0.8 is like the maximum I would go for, but it's a decent value. It's dry wood in this case, so quite rough. Dirty AO, basically again an AO map to cover some of the crevices with like a fairly rough value, so 0.9. General grunge, I don't even know what I'm using for this. Seems like I'm using the AO map again. Yep, the AO map. Boom. So this is where we are at. In hindsight, I definitely wouldn't add this low value there. It doesn't feel right, but fine, whatever. And that's it, I guess. Now, this is something I prepared just to show you what this does. So I have this normal map. And it's the final normal map with all the grain stuff, the flakes, and all that. And let's say someone asked this in chat today. Let's say you want to, let's say this was actually a vertical material. Let's change this to a quad, which is a vertical plane in this case. Right? And let's say I only wanted the dust to settle on the top part here. Well, you can do this with this node called normal direction mask. Well, under the hood, what this does is that it separates the normal map channels. So let's do that. Separate. It's called channel split. Yeah. So it separates the channels, and you can see that you have the red, which goes from left to right. A gradient that goes from left to right. The green, which goes from bottom to the top. The blue, which is sort of like a facing normal, like which parts of the material are like they have a bit of a slope here. Yeah, you can see that. It's like the z-axis, as if you were looking through the material. So the gradient goes from like below the plane towards you. If it makes sense. And so you can isolate that, right? Like you can isolate what you want. You can isolate the values of these channels. And this is what the normal direction mask does. But instead of you figuring it out and like having to remember which gradient does what, you have these values here. So in this case, I use this front, which is the Z value, the blue channel value, and it gives me this. essentially another height mask, if you will. I'm then inverting it, and using that as a mask to sort of add a bit of roughness differentiation along the edges uh, of the rocks. It's totally meaningless, right? Like no one's going to see that ever. I just wanted to show you that this is possible, right? So you can do that. Okay, and then we are using our trusty material make and trusty material finalize, and that's it. That's the material. I hope you find this useful, at least in some ways. Of course, like some of the steps, like for example, how you create your height maps, and that you're creating your generator separately, and that you're like generally like basing everything on the height map, but then you break it up so that you get your albedo, and then you can like use your height map information and also your albedo information to create roughness, but you also want to be handpicking your values for different aspects of your graph. All that applies, that's fine. But be mindful of the planning, right? Like you have to plan ahead. I wasn't really doing that, and I pay the price. I can't adjust the material anymore. I can't sell it, right? Like I can't give you the material because it's unusable. Like if I gave this to someone, he wouldn't know what to do with this. So yeah, I can export a few textures and maybe create like a render of the like a material sphere, and it would be okay-ish. But I'm also not too happy with the shape of the rocks. I'm also not happy with the albedo, and that goes back to how I created a lot of these maps and steps and how I layer them. So again, in retrospect, not the best material. I'm gonna try to do better next time. With that, I'm just going to show you what we are going to discuss next time, which is the do I save this? I guess I save this. Which is the sci-fi door material, and sci-fi is actually very close to my heart, and I am very much versed in the aesthetic, and it's I'm originally a hard surface modeler in 3D, so this is something that I think I can do fairly well, and I think also the material shows that. So I'm going to showcase how you can make hard surface height maps and texture that in InstaMAT. I guess we are going to do that next week if I have the time, which I should have. So that's fine. And I also did a quick wood experiment. We discussed that on Discord. The result is so-so, and again I had some problems controlling the graph afterwards. Where is it? Yeah. So I actually studied this. This is a study of one of the materials from InstaMAT's library, and I didn't know what I was doing for the most part. But I wanted to try some of the techniques that you might find interesting. For example, using flat fill to random direction, using flat fills for distance nodes, and to drive like more differentiation in your noises. When you're using stuff like warps and slow blurs on like planks and tiles in general, you want to break up the noise as well so that it sort of doesn't cover both sides of your edges. It looks weird. It looks very artificial. It looks as if you just blended something over it. So that's one of the techniques I wanted to try. I also wanted to try to control my noises in a meaningful way when you're creating wood fibers. So enough talk. This is the material. Not the best, I would say. I kind of like the general flow of the wood, and some of these effects are really cool. Like I think I managed to get these right, but I think I'm gonna remake this material as well in the coming weeks. And I learned a lot, and I'll present you with something that's a bit more thought out than this quick experiment that I made. This took me one night. I mean, relatively quick, I suppose. All right, so I wish you, wherever you are, whoever you are, a good day or a good night, and I guess I'll be back. Not sure when, maybe Sunday. Maybe Monday, not quite sure. And we are going to talk about the sci-fi stuff. if you have any suggestions, any complaints, any questions, please let me know in the comments or find me on Discord. My name is Adam Shimek, so you can find me there. And yeah,